I used to live with the biggest idiot on the face of the earth. Hector was the 6-foot Latino dude from New Jersey who had two distinct modes of being. Either he was a tornado of anger, or he was maniacally laughing at something. Rarely was there any in between. When you caught him in his laughing mood, he was tolerable, but catch him in one of his angry moods, and he was completely unbearable. He was a roadie for some posh-core band that toured up and down the East Coast a bunch, which was one of the few good things about being his roommate. The fact that he spent weeks away at a time from the apartment but still paid rent. Whenever he was home though, well, here's an example. It's July in East Harlem. I have the windows open and music is flowing through the afternoon air from some other open window. I'm sipping Southern peach lemonade, and life is good. Out of nowhere, Hector burst into the apartment covered in brick dust.
Hey, I need some bricks, bro. You got some bricks?
I had just started driving Uber while trying to start my stand-up career, so no, I didn't have any bricks. And even if I did, I wouldn't have been sharing them with Hector. Suddenly, he said, "There's bricks on the roof." He ran out of the apartment building and toward the stairwell of the building. I heard all these kids shouting from outside the window. I look out to see a group of kids, all like 11 years old, shouting stuff in Spanish at our building. They see me and start flipping me off and whatnot before deciding to scatter in all directions. Then bam, a brick lands right in the spot where they had been. They all scattered. See, that's the type of guy Hector was. He can go out for a pack of rips and find himself in a brick fight with a bunch of Puerto Rican kids. Never in my life have I ever been in a fight with a preteen, let alone one involving projectiles. But around Hector, stuff like that was a daily occurrence. Come that October, Hector was headed out on some big Halloween tour with his band. He told me he wouldn't be back until the second week of November. That meant I'd have to cover half the rent until then, something I'd have to borrow money to do. This caused a big fight. For the first time since I moved in, I thought Hector might actually hit me. Being the kind of guy he was, I knew for a fact that if it came to violence, he wouldn't stop at just one punch either. When the time came for him to go on tour, needless to say, the mood in the apartment wasn't just at its low point. I was legit scared for my physical safety. He left and started looking for a new apartment. Life was not so good anymore. A few nights later, the night before Halloween actually, I was sitting in the little kitchen area. I was looking through some stuff at other apartments when someone buzzed up. I go to see who it is. This is back when we had intercoms, but really, they sucked and barely worked half the time. I heard some guy with an accent say something like, "I need to get into the apartment number 3, but the buzzer's not working." I buzzed the guy in without a second thought. New York is a city built on takeout delivery and street food, so I was hardly going to be suspicious over a delivery driver. I should have been though. I almost paid for it with my life. Not a moment later, those guys busted the front door like it was nothing. Just smashed the lock right through with a sledgehammer. I actually thought it was the police at first because they just piled in, guns drawn, shouting to get on the floor and get down. Once they were talking to each other, I was lying face down in the linoleum. That clued me into the fact that these were just stick-up guys. What were they doing in my apartment though? My first thought was, God, Hector, whose toes did you step on now? Before I could wonder anymore, one of the guys started asking me, "Where is it?" He was screaming, "Where is it?" I thought, where's what? That just made him even more mad. They started kicking me over and over until I balled up in the fetal position. They asked me again. I don't even know what they were talking about, so obviously I couldn't tell them anything else. I just said that I had no idea. There was $20 in my wallet, but that's all I had. The offer of $20 just offended them further, and they started kicking me even harder before tearing apart the apartment like they were looking for something in particular. When I say tearing it apart, I really do mean it. They were breaking everything, pulling drawers all the way out, throwing them. It was destruction in every sense of the word. It was around then that I got a good look at the guys. They were all messed up, had stuff over their faces, all were wearing black gloves in the works. These are probably professional stick-up guys, probably robbed drug dealers for a living. Hector wasn't dealing. I mean, I think I would have noticed at some point. I saw a lot of broken guitars and amplifiers around, but not too many piles of weed or money. As I was thinking about this, one of the guys said, "Are you sure this is the right place?" I don't know, man. They only told me he keeps it in the bathtub." I felt this wave of relief washing over me. They'd got the wrong place. Surely they were just gonna walk out, right? Maybe take my phone so I couldn't call the cops or something. I told them my phone was on the table next to my food, and I wouldn't call the police if they just left right now. The stick-up guys kind of paused and looked at each other. Then, right as I thought they were about to leave, one of them said, "I think he's seen my face when we were breaking in. Man, he's gotta go." One of them had a gun, and the guy who wanted me dead started reaching to take it from the guy who had it. The guy who had it didn't want to give it up though. That was my cue to soil myself and start begging for my life. Not my proudest moment at all. They were arguing over whether or not to kill me. I was there begging for my life. It was all chaos and shouting and screaming. I'm amazed no one had called the cops already. All of a sudden, boom, the front entrance of the apartment building slammed shut, and I can hear a very familiar voice coming up the stairs. I'm not even going to type out what Hector was saying. I'd be canceled and deleted from the internet within seconds after posting it. But let's just say someone had canceled their tour 3 days in, and he was absolutely livid about it. He was screaming out every curse and horror under the sun, ranting and raving as he pounded his way up the stairs and into the apartment. Both me and the stick-up guys were frozen in anticipation. As he entered, he said something like, "Hey, I got your money, you whiny baby." The guy with the gun aimed it at Hector as he walked in. He looked around at the pure destruction that greeted him and said, "Who are you people?" "Well, who are you?" the guy with the gun screamed back. Hector was gone by this point. He was foaming at the mouth, looking like his eyes were about to pop out of his head in anger. I watched in amazement as Hector basically turned into a drunken, slightly overweight Jason Bourne. All of a sudden, he swung his backpack and threw it at the shooter. He struck him right in the face and knocked him off balance. Hector charged at him and tackled him down onto the carpet, beating his face into the floor. The other two guys tried to jump in, and I was thinking someone was about to get shot or killed. Out of nowhere, Hector jumped up and began sending full-body punches to both of the guys holding his own. He knelt down and grabbed the gun from the floor. Now he was holding the gun he'd almost been shot with, telling the guys to back up or else. His face was bleeding from being beaten up, and he was totally gassed, and he was having fun, having just won a 3-on-1 fist fight. He sat down on the KO'd shooter's back and told the other guys to get out right now. He told me to dial 911. Only when the cops showed up to arrest the guy that he had managed to detain did he realize he'd actually been stabbed in the shoulder. That night, as he got stitched up at the hospital, I sifted through all the broken and non-broken stuff, swept up all the broken glass and ceramics, and generally tried to put the apartment back in order. He got back at around 1 a.m., still drunk after the doctor told him not to drink on these painkillers. Immediately, he started complaining about the break-in. I just carried on cleaning up, stopping only briefly to say something deeply heartfelt. "Hector, I just wanted to say thanks. I think you might have saved my life today, dude, and I just wanted to say thank you." I felt my throat kind of tighten up as I said it, in a very similar way to how it's doing now as I'm typing this, remembering that night. Hector looked at me with this look in his eyes that almost made me feel like I'd gotten through to him. That is, until he replied with, "Whatever, you could have jumped in at any time, you know." I didn't mind though. I knew Hector well enough by this point to know he wasn't exactly in touch with his feelings. He immediately sought to leave the room, due to the uncomfortable amount of emotion in the air. He turned and said, "Did you see the look on those guys' faces?" It's hilarious. He just walked back in his room, laughing that evil toddler laugh that makes my skin crawl. For just over a year, I shared an apartment with the biggest idiot on the face of the earth, and I owe that idiot my life.